Chris Guld with Geeks on Tour. And when we're traveling, I take so many pictures. I mean, look at that sunset. How can I take just one? I'm going to take one this way. I'm going to take one this way. Oh my. It is just so pretty. And then I'll probably take a couple in the morning. So then what do you do with all of those pictures and so many of them that look the same? Well, that's what I want to show you, what my process is in selecting the best photos. So here are all the photos I just took. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lots of photos of that sunset last night. Do I really need to keep all of them? Well, no, and a lot of people would say you need to go in and delete. Well, but these are all pretty pictures. I can't delete them. What I can do, however, is take a look through them and decide maybe which ones are my favorites. And then all you have to do to mark your favorites, so I'm looking through them. Now, that one is a favorite. On Google Photos, I'm in Google Photos now. I will show you in a minute on the iPhone and on the Samsung. You just tap the star. That makes that picture a favorite. Now, I think I liked one of the very first, and I like this one with the sunset reflected in our RV. I'll make that a favorite. And I think that one, nope, that one is a favorite. So now what? Instead of looking at all 20 or so pictures, I can tap on the library button and favorites. Now I am just looking at the favorites. There's 1, 2, only 3 pictures of the sunset. And if you should ever feel ambitious someday, so I'm going to back out and look at all my photos again. If you should ever feel ambitious someday and want to delete some photos that you don't need to keep, you know not to delete the ones that have the star on them. So that's how easy it is to use favorites in Google Photos. Okay, so that's how you use favorites if you use Google Photos. I use Google Photos for everything, but let's say you don't use Google Photos and you have a Samsung phone, you use Gallery. You tap on Gallery and you can tap on any photo and it's the little heart. It's the heart that makes it a favorite. And to view your favorites then, out from the main menu, it's the 3 dashes and favorites. Now you're only seeing the photos marked as favorites in Samsung Gallery. And last, for the iPhone, I still use Google Photos. But if you don't use Google Photos and you use this, I call it Apple Photos, you are looking at all your photos and you can specify favorites by opening it up and tapping the heart down at the bottom. That's the favorites. And then if you want to just see only your favorites, that's down under albums. And there is an album called favorites. Now, a special little thing on the Apple, you can mark a picture as a favorite either in Apple Photos or in Google Photos, and it will synchronize and be marked as a favorite in the other. How do you do that? You need a setting in Google Photos. If I open Google Photos, tap on my little face or initial, my account button, and go to Google Photos Settings, Apps and Devices, Apple Photos, Sync Favorites. If that is on, then you can mark a favorite in either Apple Photos or Google Photos, and it will be marked in the other. Now I want to talk a little bit about editing. And I'm going to Google Photos. That's where I do all my editing. And this time I'm going to use the computer. If you use Google Photos and back up all your photos, you can look at them at photos.google.com just as well as on the phone. And I like the bigger screen. So this sunset picture that I marked as a favorite, what's wrong with it? It's crooked. You don't want to leave a favorite picture and keep it crooked. So here I am on the computer. I just click on this button, which is the edit button. I can make it straight by using the crop and rotate tool. That's the second one over here. And then you just click on the 0 point and you drag right and left until you see the horizon match up with the straight line grids. Okay, that looks much better, but as long as we're in here, what else can we do? I'll click on the suggestions, the first button, and try and enhance. No, I don't like it lighter. I like it the dark. How about dynamic? Well, that's okay, but I think I still like it even the darker. Or vivid? Kind of like that. But notice as soon as I use one of these premium editing tools, that's what the multicolored one means, it changes from save to save a copy. If I do that, then the edited version is not the favorite. The original is. So if you use one of the premium tools and you are forced to save a copy, then I recommend that you delete the one that was the favorite. So I do delete sometimes, when it's my work that created the extra copy, and then make sure to mark as a favorite the one that you've just edited and fixed. And lastly, I want to show you how you can use favorites when searching. So if you're anything like me, you've taken a lot of pictures of sunsets. I can search for sunsets. I'm using Google Photos on the computer, the web version of Google Photos here. I search for sunsets, and I guarantee there will be hundreds and hundreds of sunsets. But if I add the word favorites, so not just sunsets, but sunsets that have been marked as favorites, now I am seeing my best sunset shots. And then if you want to share, you should put these into albums. I create an album of my best shots for every month or for every trip. And I have lots of other videos on that. If you go to geeksontour.com and look at the tutorials menu and videos, search for albums, you'll see a lot. Have fun with your photos.
Most of us have a digital identity, and it's more valuable than you might think. They say everyone is likely to have a living, breathing doppelganger. Whether you believe that or not, this is for certain. If you've ever used the internet to do something as simple as create an email account or social media profile, like most of us have, then Viola, you have a doppelganger. However, instead of an identical twin made out of flesh and bone that may exist in the real world, it's actually you that thrives in the digital one. What's more, That version of you has a digital identity, and it's worth more than you may think. Digital Identity Explained. The concept of digital identity might sound complex, but it's actually easy to grasp. Digital identity is essentially any personal data existing online that can be tracked back to the real you. For example, photos you've uploaded to social media, posts you've created, or comments on your online bank account, search engine history, and yes, if you're a gamer, your Steam account too. That said, we ourselves are largely responsible for providing the content and data that creates our online identities. With a whopping estimation of 4.2 billion digital double-gangers thriving on the net, and especially when looking at it from a cybersecurity perspective, that's just as many opportunities for exploitation to occur. Your online identity can make others rich. As mentioned previously, your digital identity holds considerable value. There's a host of outsiders that would love to get their hands on your personal data and will take various measures to do so. While the classic image of a hooded hacker clacking away on a laptop comes to mind, and it's true that cybercriminals are a threat, it might shock you to learn that Internet Service Providers, ISPs, can be just as deviant. ISPs can sell you private browsing logs to ad companies who will pay top dollar for such information that helps refine their marketing objectives. Even famous game apps like Angry Birds have been found guilty of a similar practice. It's not just individuals lurking in the shadows that are hunting for our digital identities. It's big companies with public profiles that are cashing in at our expense. Taking control of your digital identity is important because digital identities are here to stay. As long as your online doubleganger exists, there will always be someone hoping to exploit it. There's good news. You can take a few steps right now to decrease the chances of that ever happening quickly and easily. Change to a search engine that respects privacy. The Avast Secure browser comes with advanced security that's built directly into your browser, allowing you to browse, shop, and bank safely on any website while protecting your privacy. Protect your passwords using password managers. Simply put, password managers put strong encryption on your passwords and allow you to manage them in one place. In addition to several other cool things they offer, there's an audit feature that checks for weak, duplicate, and old passwords. Always use a VPN. A virtual private network is software that establishes a secure connection between you and the server. Information moving between this connection is encrypted and cannot be read by your ISP. While this is a great start to concealing your browsing activity from your ISP, it does not hide the fact that you're using a VPN. You can push that level of concealment even further if you use Avast Secure Browser's built-in mobile VPN, which makes itself appear to be just an ordinary site. My thanks to Emma McGowan for the inspiration of this video. You'll find her article at the link listed.
Heart problems again. This week, two of my best friends had a medical event that required a pacemaker insertion. These two people did not watch Tech for Senior and were not wearing a smartwatch. Unfortunately, this led to a rather unfavorable event. Let me discuss this and how I can help. It's Ron Brown with Tech for Senior, where we make videos to help seniors understand technology and also help you with your health as well. Today I'm going to take off my regular shirt and put on my doctor's cape that I wore for about 35 years, helping people through their difficult times in life. But since I retired, a new technology has come along, and that is the smartwatch. This is an important device that can really help seniors avoid complications. Now, the first individual is a longtime friend of mine. He's a retired dentist and lives in Nebraska. Yes, I've been to Nebraska many times. There's a lot of very nice people there, and I have some great memories of Nebraska. So my friend decided to paint the side of his house, and he went up on some scaffolding and was painting the side of his house when he didn't feel so well. He felt a little dizzy and got down off the scaffolding and thought he should leave it for another day. He discussed it with his wife. She came out and helped him move some of the scaffolding over so when he came back and started painting again, it would be in the right position. But unfortunately, the last moment he went up the ladder and had another spell, whatever this was, and fell off the ladder. And the first thing he remembers is waking up in intensive care unit where he had a pacemaker inserted and 2 fractured feet and a back injury. So what happened? Well, his heart became very slow. He lost consciousness, fell off the ladder, landed on his feet, unfortunately broke both his feet, and ended up in the hospital. Unfortunately, this is going to be a long recovery for him because, of course, he has fractures and bones in his feet that don't heal very well, and also he has a back injury. And a very unhappy way to spend your retirement years. The second individual was a friend of mine that lives locally here. She was on a walk with her husband and ended up back at the car, but before she got in, she's collapsed and fell to the ground. She had no chest pain, and after the investigations were done, she ended up with a pacemaker in the hospital. Both of my friends within 1 week, and unfortunately, this could have been prevented. And if they had watched one of the 19 videos I've made about smartwatches and your pulse, atrial fibrillation, and pacemakers. So let's go over this one more time. So when you reach the age of 60, there's 2 conditions that sort of start to appear in your health. And the first is a situation where your heart slows down. It doesn't keep up the speed it needs to provide blood and oxygen to the brain. And it gets slower and slower and slower, and then you lose consciousness. And so we have to speed the heart up, and we do that by putting a pacemaker in, which is an electrical stimulation to keep the heart going. The second condition is where the heart speeds up too fast. And one of the types of this can be atrial fibrillation. And the problem with atrial fibrillation is you often don't know that you have it. And the major side effect of this is stroke. The other issue that's a big factor here is that as you get older from 60, the incidence of this goes up exponentially, not linearly, but exponentially, which means the older you get, the more common this is going to be in a big way. So if you want to protect yourself against this, then I think that the smartwatch and the monitoring your pulse is a very good idea. Let's look at 2 friends. Let's look at my friend from Nebraska. He's now going to have a very long recovery. He's got broken feet. I've seen this personally where this doesn't heal up very well, and he could have chronic pain in his feet and his back. Not a great way to be in retirement, but this is a totally preventable thing. This wasn't the first time this happened, I'm sure, and it would have been picked up had he been monitoring his pulse with a smartwatch. Now let's say my other friend that lives here had got in the car and driven home. She could have passed out in the car and a big disaster would have happened. So we have to be careful as we get to be seniors. We want to pick this up because these are conditions that are very treatable, and it requires you to monitor your pulse. So on the back of these watches, there are sensors, and the sensor can measure your pulse, and it measures it very accurately. Now, there are some watches that are not so smart, and they just measure your maximum and minimum pulse, and that's fine. Or there's smarter watches that actually communicate with your cell phone and can actually do a lot more. But the goal here is that I'd like you to know if your pulse is going too fast or too slow. So you should have a watch that you wear that will notify you if indeed it's going too fast or too slow. It's simple. Even a $15 watch will do that in a lot of cases. Now, what you do is you want to set up in the watch, you want to set up a maximum heartbeat, and let's say it's 140. You put that in there, and what will happen is the watch will bleep or give you some sort of notification if your heart is going over 140. Now, some smartwatches communicate with your smartphone and will send you notification and do more advanced monitoring. But what you need to know is if your heart is going over 140. The same happens with your pulse. You should set the minimum pulse on your watch at around 60. Now, this varies for each individual because some of the medications we use, particularly for blood pressure, like beta blockers, will slow your heart rate down. So sometimes you need a little bit of information from your physicians to help you figure out what the minimum is, but I would set it at 60 to start with so that it would send you a notification if your heart goes below 60. I am sure both these people we just talked about, had they been wearing any sort of watch that monitored their pulse, they would have had events before where their heart rate dipped down to, let's say, 40. Usually it's around 40 when you lose consciousness. And so they would have been able to go in and get help before these disasters occurred. So measuring the pulse with your smartwatch is so important. And this should be a critical decision process in purchasing a watch because you want to be able to track your pulse and notify you high or low. Now, it was very interesting. After this happened, I went and checked my wife's older Fitbit, and she actually has the we're going to talk about atrial fibrillation in a minute. She has the atrial fibrillation monitor, but her old Fitbit doesn't have the high-low pulse notification, which is really critical. So that is something you want to make sure that if you are purchasing a device to wear on your wrist, that it has this high-low pulse notification. It's very easy to do. You don't need to spend a lot of money on your watch for this to happen. It's just it monitors it all the time and will tell you high or low. One of the big changes that has occurred in the past 5 years is the ability of your smartwatch to detect atrial fibrillation. This is a condition where your heart speeds up too fast. If it went up over 140 and you were in atrial fibrillation, if you had one of the cheaper smartwatches, it would just say your heart is going too fast. So with the changes that have occurred over the past 5 years, we now had some very accurate, sophisticated tracking that the more expensive smartwatches will do to identify atrial fibrillation, tell the doctor how long you've been in atrial fibrillation, and what are some of the aggravating and relieving factors for this. It's amazing what this does. And I've made a lot of videos about this, so I'm not going to go over that today. I'll leave the link below for a lot of the videos I've made that more specifically discusses this. But this is something we did not have when I was practicing medicine. This is really a game changer, particularly for seniors, because who wants a stroke, right?